So I have a provocative question for you. Do you need a pull list? Let's discuss it. This content is sponsored by BCW Supplies. Visit them at bcwsupplies.com. Reggie here, your friendly neighborhood bodybuilder and comic book collector, and I want to welcome you to another one of my videos. In this video, we are going to be provocative and we are going to ask ourselves a question of, do we even need a pull list? And for those that don't know what a pull list is, essentially it is almost like an order that you place with a comic shop, where you say to a comic shop, you know, every time Amazing Spider-Man comes out, I want you to set aside one copy for me, and, you know, set aside a copy of Fantastic Four and Immortal Hulk as well, right? So every time that book comes out, whether it be weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly, the comic shop owner will set aside in a box, in a folder, in a bin, a copy of that comic for you. And you are essentially obligated to purchase those books. So I honestly did not have a pull list for the vast majority of my life. I honestly didn't have one until 2018. That was the first time in my entire life that I had a pull list. I used to, as a kid, make the trip every single week, every single month or whatever it was, to the comic shop to pick up my books. And that meant sometimes I would miss books, right? That's honestly what it meant. But as a kid, not having, you know, a steady stream of money, I couldn't necessarily be on the hook for, you know, X number of books, right? Because I didn't always know when I was going to come back. I may not have always gone back to the same shop. And so I never really had a pull list for several reasons. But as an adult in 2018, I realized that I needed a pull list. And so I want to talk a little bit about that rationale for why I decided to do it. And then I want to get into some questions around, you know, do you need a pull list? And if so, what does that pull list look like? So let's hold off on that for just a moment. So part of the reason why I decided to do a pull list is because I didn't want to be as transactional as maybe I was in the past. And what I mean by that is that a transactional person is one that only interacts with someone when they have something that they want, right? So I want to get a book from you. I need this book off the wall, or whatever it is, or this toy, or whatever it is. That is a transactional person versus maybe someone who has more of a relationship. And so I wanted to start developing relationships with the local comic shops in my area. And I figured one way to do that was to actually have a pull list, right? Where they knew what type of books I liked. I came into the shop at regular intervals to buy those books, but also to engage with the shop owner and whoever else happened to be in the shop at the time. And this move from transactional interactions to more of a relationship has worked incredibly well for me. I have had some fantastic exchanges and discussions with shop owners, right? I honestly have had some fantastic conversations. These guys, in many ways, have gone over and beyond in some ways, where they have set books aside for me because they thought that I might like it, or they knew that I'd like it and I didn't mention it, but they anticipated what my needs were because of the interactions that we've had. And I've told this story before. One comic shop owner has given me tickets to cons to get in free. He has also enabled me to jump the line at some comic shops or comic cons when the lines were extremely long. I have another that allows me to leave books for other people in the comic book community at his shop so that they can pick up books. So I don't have to find a time to meet up with them. I just drop it off at the shop. The person goes to the shop because that's their LCS and they just pick their books up. My point is that by having the pull list and developing a relationship with these shop owners, I have been rewarded with richness of conversation and just my ability to walk into a shop and just have some fun because I'm going to see a friend and we're going to have a great conversation about whatever the topic of the day is. And then there's the other perks that come along with it. So in addition to having these wonderful exchanges, having a pull list also gets you a discount sometimes in certain comic shops. Because you are essentially a loyal customer, you will oftentimes get a discount. And I think that that's wonderful, especially if you're going to be spending money in that comic shop. A lot of times that discount extends to back issues, not just the new issues. So that certainly comes in very handy. So a couple of other things I think that come along with having a pull list is that you are supporting the new comic book sector, the new comic book market, right? These local comic shops can actually depend upon a certain amount of income because you have a pull list. By having it, they know that Reggie is coming back to pick up this book and he is going to spend whatever that is in his pull list. I know that I can count on that money, right? The shop owner can actually plan against that. They know how many books to order because they know how many people want that book because it's on their pull list. And so they're able to gauge demand and ultimately, hopefully, run their business a little more successfully. I also have a small business that I run on the side. And so I also like to support small businesses, and local comic shops are definitely that. So I have wonderful conversations, I get discounts, I make some friends, I support local businesses, and I support the overall health of the new comic book market. To me, that is a win. And so if you are debating, do I get a pull list? Do I not get a pull list? I wanted to provide you some context around why I actually have pull lists. And up until recently, I actually had 3 different pull lists at 3 different shops, but cut it back just a little bit to 2 shops that I'm able to get to on a more regular basis. Okay, so let's just assume that you are going to have a pull list, all right? Now let's dig into some questions that maybe you want to ask yourself. One of the questions is your pull list a purchase list or a parking lot? And what I mean by this is, are you every single week or every other week or every month clearing out your pull list box? Or do you find yourself carrying books from week to week, month to month, because you don't necessarily have the money to buy those books? And I'm not trying to be critical of anyone's management of their budget, but what I am suggesting is that if you're using your pull list as a parking lot, then maybe you need to cull your pull list back. Maybe the books that are on your pull list aren't necessarily the books that should be on your pull list, right? Because if you're not reading these books week after week after week, month after month, then that might be a sign that that's a book that you're no longer interested in. And maybe you swap that book out for something else, or maybe you just cut that title entirely because there's something that's going on there. And the question is, what is it? And at the end of the day, only you will be able to answer that question. So is it a parking lot or is it a purchase list? So the next question is, why are the books on your pull list on the list? Is it for investment purposes? Is it for speculation? Or is it for entertainment? And at the end of the day, it really matters not what the answer is to that question, other than the fact that by asking and answering that question, that helps you to figure out whether the books that are on your list should stay on your list, whether they are the right titles from the right publisher or not. And so you want to ask yourself, what is my motivation? What is my goal for this pull list? What is the rationale behind this book and this other book? Why are they here? So ask yourself that question, and if you don't have really good answers, then maybe that tells you something about those specific books that you're unable to answer that question about. So, how much money are you spending on new comics every single week or every single month? How much money are you spending on new comics? And is that amount of money in some way, shape, or form preventing you from getting books that you truly desire? So let's say that you have a pull list and you're clearing it out every single week or every other week. You're clearing it out, but you're not even reading the books. They're just building up in a bin at your house. And because you're spending that $50 every single month on those new comics, you're not saving up for that Silver Age book that you really want, or that modern variant that you really want, because you're burning through $50 on books that you're not actually reading. And so you just want to kind of ask yourself, why am I doing the things that I'm doing? And by doing these things, are they preventing me from doing some other things that I really want to do? And what you may say is that $50 isn't a lot, which is true. But if you save up $50 every single month over time, that actually adds up to a healthy amount of money. One of the things that I was actually guilty of, and it's no one's fault, right, is as I had my pull list, at least on one shop, on cruise control. And what I mean by that is that I went in there when I could and I said, what's in my bin? They would put the books in front of me. I would give them my money and I would take the books out. And sometimes there would be an extra book in there that they thought that I was interested in. I never even flipped through it to see what it was. Sometimes there were doubles of books that I had already read because they were on a pull list at another shop. I actually didn't like the book because it wasn't a good read. But I still bought it anyway, right? My pull list was essentially on cruise control. And what I realized is that that list had to be culled back because I was just spending money unnecessarily. And so that's part of the reason why at the beginning of this year, I actually cut out one shop's pull list, is because I realized that I could shift the books that I had there to two other shops that I was able to get to more frequently. And I was able to reduce the overall number of books that I was picking up every single month. So sticking on this idea of cruise control, it just begs the question of, is the mix of books on your pull list still optimal, right? There are titles that will wax and wane in popularity because a writer or an artist will shift off and shift back onto a title. Like Ryan Ottley, for example, on Amazing Spider-Man. I actually really enjoy his artwork. He was actually off the title for a period of time, I think because of a death in his family. And the artist that filled in for him, in my opinion, my estimation, wasn't as good as Ryan. And so one of the things that I actually considered is, removing that title from my pull list for that period of time that he was away and then restarting it once he returned. So that's one method. Another method might be to just eliminate a specific book altogether and maybe substitute a different book. So there you have it. Just a couple of tips and things to think about. I am not a fan of wasting money, not at all. But I am a fan of local comic shops and small businesses. So the point of this video isn't about, getting rid of your pull list. It's more about using the resources that you have a little wiser to make sure that you can still support the local comic shop, support your need or your desire for new books, and also support some of your bigger goals, like the purchase of keys and Silver Age books and modern keys, if those are the things that you're interested in. This whole video was really about giving you just a couple of things to think about to help you be a smarter collector. At the end of the day, whatever decision you make, that's the right decision. So I want to thank you guys for taking the time to watch this video. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, I want to encourage you to do so. That way you can stay abreast of all the content that I release on a weekly basis. Take care. Be sure to visit BCW Supplies to learn about their 950 plus products for collectors. Products include card sleeves, display cases, comic bags, storage boxes, and gaming folders, just to name a few items. Head over to bcwsupplies.com today for more information.